Hong Kong's Legislative Council is considering a bill that would make it a crime to insult the Chinese national anthem. The maximum penalty for insulting the national anthem, including booing during the national anthem at a soccer game, could be 3 years in jail. China introduced a new set of regulations regarding online media. Platforms are now expected to review everything before publishing it. If a user publishes something deemed inappropriate, the platform can be held responsible. We've already seen a lot recently about the Chinese economy having serious problems. Now adding to that negative data is a downward trend for factory prices. Inflation of factory prices has almost stalled completely. Balding had some really interesting points he made on Twitter to follow up on his piece about the Belt and Road Initiative. So if a developing country really needs infrastructure investment, you'd think that they'd be able to get it from a number of sources. However, most international companies are going to look at it and say, we have no protections in this country, because if the government just decides to seize the property, they have little recourse. So what China does, according to Balding, is they bribe the government to make the investment in the first place, so then they have blackmail material in case the government decides to try to back out of the deal in any way. And whereas other international companies wouldn't want to go into a country and where they could definitely suffer a loss at the hands of the government, Chinese companies know that if that happens to them, they can just turn to Beijing and Beijing will seize the port or whatever piece of infrastructure it was. But the company itself won't be left taking a massive loss. Which makes you realize it really is just the Chinese model made global. All of the low-hanging fruit for infrastructure in China has already been picked. So instead of making massive Chinese bank loans to Chinese companies to make massive infrastructure projects in China, Chinese banks make massive loans to Chinese companies to do massive infrastructure projects outside of China. And when these infrastructure projects don't make the necessary returns to cover the financing for the project, the Chinese government just rolls it into a larger debt pool. Eventually, there's going to be a reckoning for all that debt. Either China will undergo depreciation or deflation. Dan Harris has a really interesting article about another side effect of the Chinese downturn. Basically, when a company is going out of business, they try to export a bunch of goods that are either bad goods or there's nothing there. So the importing company gets stuck with a bunch of crap. Now, China has an export insurance organization. So if a Chinese supplier exports something and doesn't get paid, they can file a claim with that organization, which is known as Sinosure. So the importer then gets sued by Sinosure for not making the payment. Dan Harris is noting a lot more of these cases taking place. The Economist has an article quoting Renmin University researchers that exporters' demand for new hires is down by 53% compared to a year earlier in the third quarter. Basically, international tensions are really high right now. At the same time, the Chinese economy is suffering from a severe downturn. And probably for that reason, political repression in China is becoming more severe. Eventually, a decision will have to be made regarding whether China chooses the path of depreciation or deflation. If they choose the path of deflation, the political repression will have to get even more severe. If they choose the path of depreciation, the international tensions will become more severe. By the way, the big news yesterday was Jeff Bezos' divorce with his wife, the biggest divorce ever. If you didn't already know, Trump wins a lot. I haven't really seen anybody in the news drawing the connection between Trump and the Bezos divorce, but Trump actually has connections with the National Enquirer and other tabloids and tabloid journalists going back decades. So in addition to putting tariffs on China and eliminating the subsidies for e-packets coming in from China, all of which harms Bezos and Amazon, he also possibly was behind revealing the fact that Bezos was having an affair, causing his wife to seek divorce.